to another episode of Voices Behind the Mask. And I'm none other than your host, Alicia Foot. And and if you're on for the first time, I know that you are wondering, what do we do on Voices Behind the Mask? But Voices Behind the Mask is that talk show, the talk show, the only talk show where we unmask real people with real stories with the intention to impact and not just impact, but to transform your life. So, welcome. With us today, we have a guest as usual. But before I introduce our guest, I want to tell you a little about what is going on Voices. All right, we have a VIP room, and you do not want to miss the VIP room. Last week, every week has been really good, and every week it gets better. And last week was just awesome. We had a great time last week in the VIP lounge. I will not tell you what takes place in the VIP lounge. Now, we have two subscriptions. We have a promotion going on for those persons in Jamaica because we know the exchange rate. And so we have a promotion going on. There's a link in the chat. Please click that link and register. We also have the general subscription. If you're in the United States or any other country, we have the general subscription. All right. And it is for a part of, let me not say it like that, a part of the subscription fees goes towards charity. So, and you'll hear a little more about that. So please subscribe. In addition to that, like I've said, we are back and it's bigger and better. And so we also have our YouTube channel. And so the link for that is also going to be in the chat. Click the link, subscribe, share with as many persons as you can, and let them also subscribe to the YouTube channel, because on the YouTube channel, we will have all the episodes that you have seen so far. Some persons are calling that they have missed episodes. So if you have missed an episode, go to YouTube and you can watch it there. But please subscribe and watch and like and share. All right. And a little about me. Usually I just come on and I introduce the guests. A little about me. My name is Alicia Foot, and I'm an educator and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a transformational coach. Yes, I wear many hats. I'm not just your talk show host. So I do a whole bunch of things. I'm also a trainer. I train business owners on how to structure or create their own unique business plans that will help them to succeed in their business. So there are a number of things that I do. All right. So if you need my services, there's also a link in the chat and you can make an appointment. My calendar link should be in the chat as well, and you can make an appointment. All right. Okay. So without further ado, I am going to introduce you to my guest. All right. Now, my guest, no, that's not the person on the screen. The person on the screen looks really angry. That's not him. I guess that's a replica of a mood. All right. So I'm gonna tell you a little about the person who will be sharing with us today. And from the flyers, you have seen that the person we'll be sharing with you today is Ryan Fraser. And who is Ryan Fraser? He was just the average underachiever in high school, failing at life. His only desire was to drink, get high, and enjoy his time with the girls. The Lord, though, had other plans. Nowadays, He's a man of many titles. And when I say many titles, many titles. He's a philosopher, a pedagogue, an andragogue, a faculty advisor, multidiscipline specialist, editor, web designer, father. He has many things, but average is not one of them. Now he's an educator with over 10 years experience in the field of education. He has been a principal at the early childhood level, guest lecturer at the university level, supervised teaching practice from the tertiary to the primary to early childhood levels. He founded worldofbackeras.com. I hope I got that right, Ryan. And if I did not, you can correct me when you get on. Which is the biggest Black superhero spot on the internet with a following of over 40,000 on Facebook alone. Wrote the article, The Search for Child-Friendly Reggae, which inspired the music compilation Kinder. And this should be available on iTunes. His academic journey has been chronicled in the Jamaica Observer article, The Remarkable Story of Ryan Fraser, how a high school struggler turned his life around to become a college lecturer. He has been interviewed by a local radio station, and that's in Jamaica, Power 106, and even presented at the JTA conference in 2019. Mr. Ryan Fraser, MA, teaching social studies and geography at the University of the West Indies, BA philosophy, University of the West Indies, digital transformation at the classroom certificate. I'm going to read all of these, and I have my reason for reading all of these. Yes, he has a lot on average, really does not describe him. He's digital transformation at the classroom certificate, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, the online educator, people and pedagogy certificate, the Open University, how to create the online course, the University of Edinburgh, people management skills certificate, Chartered Institute of Personal Development, research impact making a difference, University of Glasgow, population 10 billion research in globe issues certificate, the University of Sheffield, teaching students who have suffered complex trauma certificate, Queen's University of Technology. Now, he seemed to have gone to every university we can think of, all right? Step into the Social Care Act, City and Guilds Group, understanding suicide and suicide prevention strategies in a global context certificate, University of Glasgow, the power of picture books, university, and listen, I have a whole another page to read, and that is just the qualifications that he has under his belt. And I'm just going to mention a few: making blended education work, a global history of sex and gender, become a better presenter, improve your public speaking, education for all, disability, diversity and inclusion, Black performance at social protest, safeguarding the collaborative research of international development, unleash your potential global citizenship certificate, the museum as a site and source for learning. And I am about to give you none other than the well-rounded, the very educated Mr. Ryan Fraser. Ryan, say hi to my guest. Say hi to my audience, sorry.
Hello, good night. Hello, good night. It sounds so extravagant the way you say it. It really isn't, trust me. I'm just still your average human being.
And like you say, you know, there's a shy side, but yes, he's not an average human being. That's not average. Yes, I've been to school. I have been to school, and I too have a number of certificates under my belt. But I think for the normal person, you have superseded, you have superseded most of us. All right. So Welcome, 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 welcome to Voices Behind the Mask. And we are about to unmask your story. And one of the things I usually listen to the person's story in the pre-interview, and I usually come up with a quote or a statement to describe the journey. And for you, I looked at the fact that, after listening and we were, structuring the flyer, my thought was that, the pivot in the journey leads to success. And that is how, in a nutshell, I would describe what you have been through. But we're not going to that yet. On Voices Behind the Mask, if you're here for the first time, you know that we start out with what we call our dodging questions, right? And so I'm going to start out with a dodging question. So you might be asking, what are the dodging questions? If you're here for the first time, you might be wondering, what are the dodging questions? No, the dodging questions are those questions that we hope that no one else has asked you. All right. So because of your accolades, the many, I'm going to go there. All right. So the average person, like most of us, like I went to university. I'm an educator like yourself. And I branched off. I studied human resource development. So I have, postgraduate diploma in that. Maybe something else like mental health. I have certification in that as well. Coaching, I have certification, but a degree, that's it. But you just have, what inspired you, to go I don't even know. It is just phenomenal and unprecedented, I think, how much you have under your belt. And if we look at you, you look young. Yeah, you look like we're same age. Because I consider myself very young, right? So what propelled you? What inspired you to go that route?
Wow. Wow. A good question. I think for me, I see learning and education as a lifelong journey. And of course, I see each of the certifications that I've undergone as things that can help me be a better human being, a better contributor in terms of field of education, in terms of my family, because I have 3 girls, I have 3 daughters and a beautiful wife. And I try very hard to improve myself each and every day, because our greatest contribution as human beings is the knowledge that we pass on to the next generation. So of course, I'm going to make some men, 3 men, very happy one day by virtue of creating 3 beautiful Black queens, empowered as they will be, no doubt. But as I said, I see learning as an ongoing process. It's never too late for you to learn something. I'm actually thinking right now of the emotional intelligence certification, which I completed this year. And for me, knowledge is like a disease. It's like a virus. It's the virus that we should literally be walking around and infecting each other with. I was teaching philosophy of education this year. And as an aside, I have also been teaching them emotional intelligence. It's a class of mostly women. I see some of my students are actually here.
Welcome to all the students who are here in the house. You can just raise your hand so that I can see you. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope you'll also come next week and the week after that. Go on, Ryan.
Yes, and of course, I've been teaching them emotional intelligence because I think it is something that most human beings don't realize. Hi, Stacy, I see you. Yeah, I was teaching them emotional intelligence as an aside because, of course, it's going to improve their interaction with their potential employers, their potential subordinates, their colleagues, their co-workers, the wider society, etc. Many times we get ourselves into problems and it's usually miscommunication. I think communication is severely lacking in Jamaica and potentially globally. And as a result of that, as I said, there's always something new to learn. So learning is an ongoing process. I think I have
Yes.
like 4 or 5 certifications that I'm currently doing now. That I started again
And
recently
that leads
because
me to my next dodging question. And
go
like I
ahead.
said, we're dodging questions are the questions that we hope that nobody asks. And I do agree with you. Um, Knowledge is always evolving. And so, like, I wouldn't take your route. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest.
I enjoy
I
it.
think, I think
Trust me, I enjoy it.
there are certain things that people love, and from what I see, but it's good. From what I see, you love knowledge, and that is good. And so my next question to you is, and these are light questions, or light questions today seem like some serious questions, but people, these are our light questions, all right? These are our dodging questions. How do you find time?
Proper time management. Epic time management. I actually make quite a few presentations on actual time management. And of course, I still find time to do my exercise because I have lost maybe about 30 pounds over the course of like from 2018 until now. So there's a lot of time management involved.
Yes. All right. So there you have it. There you have it. Knowledge is power. And in an effort to ensure that you can do all that you have to do, thank you. We all need that. We have to practice proper time management. And because, and that is true, because I'm realizing with myself, the more that you do, you have to get it all done. And you just have to structure and restructure, and all of that has to do with time management. So thank you. And I know our guests are grabbing onto that as well. So if anybody here is struggling with whatever, time management, and the students who are here, time management, and you're currently a lecturer. What college are you at?
I would rather not
All right.
stay,
So
but yeah, I lecture at the tertiary level. I think
okay, so you're
that's
at it, but that's
enough.
fine. That's fine. That's fine. I jumped out with that one because after I finished the pre-interview, I was like, I never asked you that question, but that's fine. There's a reason for me not asking you then, and now I realize why. That's fine, and we understand that as well in terms of professionalism. Sometimes we do not want to disclose that information. All right, so we respect your desire not to. So let's move into your story. Tell us about the early days of your childhood.
The early days. Okay. I had a pretty wonderful childhood. I was born in, well, if I tell the date, then you'd know my age. I'm a millennial, I'll say that much. But I had a pretty charmed life as a child. I am the product of a marriage. My mother and my father were married. My father is of Maroon descent. My mother is of Indian, Cuban, and German descent. So of course, in Jamaica, which is very colorist, I'm a brown dude with pretty hair. It's just one of those things. It is what it is. It's a cultural thing. But I had a pretty charmed life growing up. My father was the chief steward on the Carnival cruise line of ships. He was one of the highest ranking Black men. So my childhood was spent traveling all across the Caribbean, different Caribbean islands, the coast of South America, etc. I had a very good childhood. I have one elder sibling. I have a sister. So of course I'm the youngest. I'm the wash belly, as we say in Jamaica. Life was pretty good. I really have no complaints. The only thing theoretically that I could say is I am 110% sure that I had an Oedipus complex and my sister had an Electra complex. So of course that would have impacted us when my father eventually died.
All right.
But
My next question to you. So most times, and we think that the persons who end up having problems, and your problem started, we could say in your childhood, teenage years, are usually children who come from like a broken home, and there are a lot of issues in that home and so on. But from what you just told us, that was not the case for you. And I love the word that you use. You said you had a charmed life.
I think I did. That is exactly how I would describe it. Perhaps maybe 10 years ago, I would have had complaints, but my parents did the best that they could do. They were both young. They fell in love. They got married. They had a daughter. 4 years later, they had a son. He migrated to provide for us. I mean, his absence, yes, he was absent physically a lot of the time, but it was for our benefit.
Mhm.
I mean, many children oftentimes don't realize the sacrifices that their parents make for them. But now, as an adult, I understand. It makes more
And a
sense to me
father.
now. Indeed, definitely.
All right. So how did a child, and I'm going to use your word, with a charmed life, ended up being, and I'm going to use my word, a delinquent?
Oh, that's exactly what I
What
was.
what 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 what's the what, because my description on the fly is the pivot, you know. So that was a pivot, not the positive pivot that I mentioned, but that was a negative pivot. What was the pivot? What was that pivotal moment? What caused, all that change?
All right, the pivot in my life. My grandfather, I'm very close to my grandparents on my mother's side. I was their first grandson. There were like three girls before me, so I was a pretty spoiled child. And I look a lot like my grandmother's side of the family, so of course I was pretty spoiled. My grandfather died in 1993. It was the first time death had, I've experienced any type of death. And then in 1997, I believe it was, my father died. And it irrevocably changed the dynamics of my family. I was in a nuclear family, etc. He was sick for a while. His death was rather sudden. My mother was studying at the time. My sister was finishing up high school. It was just devastating. Everything that my life was, it no longer was. There was no stability. I don't think any of us that experienced the death quite understood how it irrevocably changed each of us and how we interact. It's crucially important, I think, when a death occurs, for all parties involved to get therapy. I think my mother and my sister, because as I stated earlier, I think I had an Oedipus complex. I was very close to my mother. My sister had an Electra complex, so she would be closer to my father. So of course, for years, I don't think they realized how the death affected me. I seemed the most outwardly unaffected. My sister and my mother they were at each other's throats. It was just not a very pleasant time at all. I remember my sister blaming me for the death. And when children experience that type of trauma, they typically internalize. And when you are not the first child, when you are a firstborn, you remember what it's like to be by yourself. If you are a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc., your elder siblings are your gods. They make or break you. And I think in many
You
ways
grow
it
to love
broke me.
company.
Pretty much. Yeah, so I think I internalized all of that was happening around me. I'm an introvert by personality. So of course I wouldn't talk. Everything would just be happening inside. And yeah, I think when he died, I thought about what would be the purpose of living if you're not enjoying life. I think I lived the mantra of, if my life was a movie, would anyone want to watch it? So you can imagine how exciting my life was as a teenager in all the wrong ways. And I was going to one of those prestigious high schools in Jamaica. That's all I'll say. And I had access to everything. I think I was many, many miles away from where my mother could supervise me. So of course, that meant that I had full autonomy to do pretty much whatever
Anything
I
you wanted
wanted
to
to
do.
do. Exactly. So it is what it is. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's one of those things. So yeah, that led me on a downward spiral. So of course, at home, I was a very model behaved child. That was also the time when I really gained weight. I think I'm an emotional eater. That's something that I've realized in the years since. So I gained a lot of weight. I really wasn't performing very well in school. Think about it this way. The year that he died, I believe I had the highest average in the school for both literature and drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, in terms of streaming, I was streaming into the class that had the second highest set of averages. And I think the year after he died, I placed like 45th out of a class of
Wow.
50. And of course, nobody around me
And I was
realized.
about to ask you that. Nobody noticed.
No, because again, I hide things very well. When you're an internalizer or when you're an introvert, people are very used to you being quiet. They don't realize that your silence oftentimes hides a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of emotional trauma. And then of course, a lot of introverts are also empaths, so they absorb the emotions and the energy of the people around them. So of course, that determines your personality, who you are around. And of course, I sank deep into marijuana use, really deep. I think I would smoke like every single day. There was nobody at my home that realized, because again, I'm kind of witty. So even though I'm not performing in class, I knew how to mask the sense. I knew how to mask everything. So I was masking not just the emotions, but also the drug use and everything else. I drank a lot as well. I partied a lot. It was just a bender. I consider it my dark days, but I mean, there's a purpose for everything in life. And that's how I view it nowadays. Because without those experiences, I wouldn't be who I am now, and I wouldn't be able to reach the people that I can reach. I would have no story to tell. My story would not be able to inspire and save people if I hadn't, in fact, been at my lowest. And I have overdosed on occasion.
Wow.
So there's that. It's just a myriad of things. But my life was essentially all about, if my life was a movie, would anyone want to watch it? So it was just very exciting, but it wasn't very godly. It wasn't very anything really. It was just me having fun all day, every day, except when, of course, I had to be around my family or my mother in particular, but she
And
was
then you
busy
pretended
working.
to be the good boy.
I don't really think it's pretend per se, because again, human beings are multifaceted. When you are on something, you are something else. You behave in a particular way, but each of those is just a manifestation of who you really are. And of course, the drugs theoretically would have enabled me to let certain things out. Because again, think about it, my home itself was pretty chaotic. My sister had graduated from high school. She left. So I was suddenly by myself. Mother was busy working. She moved from having financial support from her husband till she has no emotional support. She's stuck with two kids. She has to work extra hard. She has to be a single parent, the whole 9 yards. And she was an educator as well. So she was busy helping other people's children. It's just that I don't think she realized up until maybe when I was interviewed by the newspaper or when I said it to her that I had been impacted in this way.
Um, there was an experience. What was happening at the school? Were they, you said they didn't notice anything that was going on, but did you get in any trouble?
Oh yes. I was in quite a bit of trouble actually. I think the first major outcry in terms of trouble for me was my first time at fifth form. I believe I was suspended for like a week, which again for many people is kind of mind-blowing because I'm outwardly so quiet, so well poised, so well mannered, etc. And yeah, I was suspended for a whole week. I had one teacher in high school I have profound respect and love for. It didn't start off as respect. I think I really admired her body because I was a teenage boy and my hormones were raging. She was coming straight from teachers college. And I remember the first time I saw her, I thought, well, she was wearing a lovely mini skirt. She was in high heels, etc. And I just remember her long legs. and thinking, my God, stairways to heaven. She was the English and literature teacher. But I think she's the only person who truly realized that I was wasted, that I wasn't really maximizing or actualizing my potential in any way. Everybody else, I was just the idler. I was just a time waster. But for her, she saw me and she recognized in me something that I had denied that I was. Because of course, in class and to fit in, you have to dumb yourself down. And I dumb myself down pretty well, just like everything else, to fit in. Because in Jamaica in particular, you do not speak English because it is seen as feminine. Everything related to being smart is feminized in Jamaican culture. So you can't speak properly, you can't perform very well on tests, you have to find other ways of expressing your masculinity, which was the purpose of the many girls. Because of course, being physically small, because I'm a tiny man, I'm like 5'5". If you were 6 feet and you could have like 2 girlfriends, I could have 12 because I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, etc. Women find me very comforting, very charming, etc. So of course,
little and cute.
yes, something like that. So of course, yes, I was suspended in 5th form. But because of the connection I had with that particular English and literature teacher, I had finished the English syllabus. I had finished the English CXC textbook. While I was at home, I believe I had written this lovely and glowing essay about how unethical it was to be suspended because, of course, according to the teacher's handbook, you have to. And then think about it. Here's a child that has many zeros on his report card and he's writing an essay about
about why you should not be.
About how you can't do this because it's highly unethical and it's actually
how
illegal.
Did that, you being home though, suspended, what was your mother's reaction?
Oh God. I think she was beside herself. She couldn't quite understand because again, yes, I wasn't performing academically, but I wasn't exactly a bad behavior.
Right,
No,
she didn't expect that.
No, she was not expecting that at all. She was beside herself. She is a typical Jamaican mother, so you know your ears can't eat grass. Cuss, and probably a bit more cuss. But yeah, she reacted pretty badly to it. I think it was the first time I truly realized how people perceived me. I think right up to that point, I just thought I was just misguided. I didn't think that I was the bad influence. I was just having fun. I was just the fun guy, as opposed to the idle boy, which everybody clearly now thought I was. So that was really kind of a turning point for me when I returned from being suspended. That teacher in particular was beside herself. She had gone to the principal, she had gone to the grade supervisor. She was very upset about it. And I realized that she cared. And I think her care breathed caring into me. And as something that I try to teach my teachers or the teachers that I'm trying to make, that you oftentimes have to believe something into being. You have to see something inside of someone. And that's why I classify myself as an educator. It's your job to see something inside someone, grab it, draw it out until they themselves can believe for themselves.
Recognize what's there.
Yes. So that was a turning point for me. Another turning point would probably be the first time I did CXCs and I passed on like two subjects. Of course, the two related to my beautiful, caring teacher. Those were the ones English. I passed. I passed English and I passed literature. I didn't pass anything else because again, I really didn't focus. I don't even think I cared. I think in the math CXC, I probably fell asleep. Well, I fell asleep in 2 of them. I got a distinction in English, but I fell asleep in that exam. I was done so long before the exam that I just slept. Now think about it. You slept in one and you failed and you got a distinction in the other one, having slept. It's kind of mind-blowing when I think about it now. But yeah, I passed 2 subjects. And at that point, I was forced to, well, clearly now I can no longer hide the fact that I am at school not doing anything at all.
Okay, right.
So now my mother has to carry me to school to have that conversation. And we have to face up to the fact that you have, in fact, messed up royally, and there's no excuse, there's no smiling, there's no charm that can get you out of this. You don't have to face
Because it's now
the
clear
music.
what that you're wasting time.
Pretty much. And I remember sitting in front of the vice principal. She was interviewing us to come back to repeat. And I remember sitting there beside my mother, and the vice principal looked at me in a very matter-of-fact way and said, "You're just a wicked child. Your mother should just give you a cutlass to go and chop." Shh. And I remember it being very sobering in terms of this is how they see me. I'm not someone who has experienced any trauma. I'm not a troubled child. I'm not a troubled young man. I am just not worthy of anything at all. I'm not even worthy of repeating. I am just worthy of chopping bush.
But now you're seeing, you were asking the question, you said you were asking the question all along, if your life was a movie, how would people view you? And then here is someone telling you, this is how I see you. I'm standing on the outside looking in, and this is the person that I see. This is what I see. This person is no good. This person is not going anywhere. This person is not worth anything. Give him a cutlass.
Pretty much.
Go
Pretty
ahead.
much.
Yeah, so tell us now how that experience, one, how it made you feel, and the pivot. Did that contribute to the pivot, or was that like something in the back of your mind that I just need to do something?
Actually, my knee-jerk reaction was to tell her off, but I didn't because my mother was there. But of course, when I repeated, I did more work. I focused more. There were things that I was interested in doing. I started thinking about what is it that I want to do with my life. I was interested in journalism at the time. I wasn't necessarily out to prove anybody wrong because, again, I marched to my own drum, kind of just do my own thing and allow the energy of the universe or God to put me where it needs me to be. So I repeated. It was sobering because now I was just an idle boy. I passed enough subjects to get to sixth form. And for sixth form, I ended up with my mother because, again, at that point, she realized that this long distance traveling is not working out. There is something theoretically that is lacking for him that perhaps proximity to me is going to fix. Sixth form now was, again, very sobering because now I was at my mother's school. She was a teacher there. She was a senior teacher there. She was the head of one of the departments, and I just knew that I couldn't come here to embarrass her. So, of course, I did more work, not just for me, but also not to embarrass her, because no, whatever you do, they're going to be like, oh, this is such and such his child. Sixth form was wonderful, honestly, especially in terms of what it did for my confidence, because when I repeated, I realized that I do not actually need a teacher to teach me anything at all. I really just need the curriculum. Once you have the curriculum, you can teach yourself to do pretty much everything. And that was one of the skills that my father had taught me before he died. And of course, when you're a child and you're being forced to do these things, you cry and you scream and you holler because you just want to run around and play. But the reality of it is those life skills have aided me greatly in my life. So at sixth form, I did my own thing. I really didn't try to fit in at all. I probably tried harder not to fit in. I was telling my wife this morning that I view myself as a lone wolf, because if everybody else is a lion, then I'm a wolf. I just like to really be different. The people who were from outside of that school, people that were being picked on, etc., I just grabbed all of them. I created my own clique because, again, they don't want us. I don't have an issue. Everybody, you're now my friends, and we're lifelong friends, and all of us are doing very well now. At sixth form, I moved from, well, here's a comparison to think about. At CBAR, at a class of 50, I was 45th. In sixth form, I was in the top three performers every single year for the 2 years. I was actually up for head boy, but they thought I was too controversial. And again, I wasn't interested in towing the line. I'm really not interested in towing the line nowadays, which is why I don't even mention where I work. Because, hey, I might say something controversial that they want to distance themselves from. So it is what it is. But sixth form was eye-opening for me in terms of my own abilities, my own skill sets. The vice principal there has become a really good friend and mentor of mine. I think she's not doing very well now. I need to see her. But yeah, sixth form was pretty good. And I was lucky enough that I applied for the University of the West Indies because that's where I wanted to go. I still didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life. I was interested in journalism, but my mother's concern was, can journalism feed a family? And I was like, I just think journalism is fun. I've really enjoyed talking. So, hey, journalism, I
And you
talk.
were good at English.
Yeah, I was really good at English in terms of writing it, speaking it, etc. So I was like, I want to be a journalist. And then I remember I was sitting and reading some of my father's books, and philosophy kept coming up in terms of metaphysics, in terms of logic, etc. And I was like, this is kind of fascinating. If everything in the world that we currently learn in the education system, the root of it is philosophy, then I want to go and I want to do philosophy, because clearly then I would have a broad knowledge base in terms of what it is that I can bring to the world as I find myself. Because really and truly, what I was doing was finding myself, because I still didn't know what was my purpose. God hadn't said, this is what you should be doing. So I got through for the University of the West Indies, and when I received my letter, I don't remember if it was a letter or a phone call. I remember just screaming, because that was like a big accomplishment, where you move from passing two CXCs and now you are going to the University of the West Indies for your first choice. And you just think, man, this is it. I have arrived. The reality of University of the West Indies is different, because you need a dramatically different skill set than you need for high school. But yeah, that was the big change. The University of the West Indies was heaven for me. Absolute blissful heaven. Anyone who has a child that is struggling, tell them just get to university, because university is literally the place where free thinkers should be. University of the West Indies, as I said, this is how heaven should be, or it is. There's knowledge and knowledge and knowledge. And I remember the first time I went into the library and I looked up at the books, and it was just mind blowing. There were just books and books and books, and every question you could possibly ask. And you could run into the most random people and have the most mind blowing conversations. And I knew where everywhere was. I'd take a bathroom break from, say, something like Spanish, which was really mundane. And on the way to the bathroom, someone is lost on their way to pure science. And they'd be like, I can't find this class. And I'd be like, okay, I'll take you. And I would take them there. Now, this is, if anybody is familiar with the University of theEst Indies, this is pretty far. Because if you are a humanities and education student.
I went to UWI.
Oh, yes. So I would carry them to their classrooms. And then, of course, they'd be like, wow, I mean, you know everywhere. And I'm kind of chuckling, because sometimes I literally found the place while I was carrying them there. It's just that I communicated very well. I could just walk up to the most random person and be like, where is such and such? Hi, how are you? Good morning, etc. The skill sets that were frowned upon in my youth, they just became these incredible building blocks outside of the confines of certain geographical locations and intellects. So at the University of the West Indies, I really just blossomed. I came alive.
I was about, you took the word out of my mouth. I was about to say to you, at the university, you blossomed, you bloomed, you became, like you said, all those skill sets, because a lot of times what we don't understand is that where we're at is really training ground. And that is mixed too, because a lot of times we want to believe that our training ground is the good, but our training ground is the good mixed with the bad. So at university, you studied philosophy. You decided on philosophy. That's a route that you took.
Oh, yes.
And so on leaving, because I never knew you, I was doing my regular thing and I came upon, something that you wrote. And one of the things that you said was that you missed, I hope I got it right, that you missed your
Graduation ceremony
graduation
for the
ceremony,
masters.
right?
Yeah.
Because you were busy. And tell us about that. No life change. So here you were, you went to university, you got the first degree, you went again and you did your master's. And while the master's ceremony, the graduation ceremony was going on, you were elsewhere. Why?
Oh God, that's a conversation and a half. All right, so after university, I'll give you the unabridged version because of time. I'm watching time myself. I think we have like 10 minutes left. And the unabridged version is this. My first child was born the year I graduated from University of the West Indies. When I left, thankfully, well, probably shouldn't say thankfully, but I was at home for a while. So me and my wife were there. She has been integral in terms of helping me to step outside of my shell. Because again, I'm an introvert, so I don't really like to do this. So of course, I had my first kid. I eventually got a job in customer service, which was absolutely mind-numbingly boring. It is the worst job if you are all about self-expression and solving problems. Worst job ever. Anyway, after that, I was at home for a while and I started working with a bunch of international personalities. I worked with Reginald Hudlin, who is connected to the Black Panther series. I believe he created the character of Suri, who is the little sister. He wrote Black Panther for a while. So I was working with them. Eventually, of course, working from home, my mother and my wife thought it looked bad because again, even though you're at home and you're making money, it just looks bad for the neighbors that you are just there in the house. So of course, the opportunity came for me to apply for a job at a tertiary level. And because I had done web design, etc., all of those are skills that I got outside of the degree, that is from working. And of course, I was asked to come in and teach IT. Went, did IT. I was terrified of my students. I was just Stacy, who had put her hand up, she was one of my first students in 2011. She can tell you, I'm dramatically different person. I mimicked what the style of teaching that I saw others do before me. So I wasn't my authentic self. At the end of the process, I said, I will never do this again. So when they called me back in January, because the students had performed really well, better than their other cohorts, I was called back to teach Caribbean studies. And I was like, I'll never teach again. So it's no biggie. I can just be me, my authentic self.
Just
and I
gonna
fell
do
in
this
love.
my way.
Yes, and I fell in love with the entire process. Absolutely, just mind-blowingly fell in love with the entire process. Students loved me, I loved them, etc. Moved from there, I applied for my master's. Went in, and that was a whole other drama. And this is where God starts doing all kinds of things. Because when I went in to do the master's, there were about 20 something of us that were down to do a double major, the Master of Arts in Teaching. It was the only double major offered. There were about 20 of us. The changes that were made in terms of the hours that we should do, etc., had also changed because we were told that when we came in, we'd be doing 40 hours for teaching practice. And then it had changed to hundreds of hours because apparently, if you are not a teacher, you need more teaching practice experience than say if you have a first degree in teaching. And I was the only person to finish the master's. Everybody else did just 1 year and got a postgrad diploma. And I was like, I don't have an issue. The lady in the office, when she said it to me, I said, no problem, this will just make me a better teacher. And that's one of the reasons why they call me back constantly to, give the reflection on the program itself. And that was just beautiful for me. I loved it. I enjoyed every single second of it because I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about knowledge acquisition, andragogy, pedagogy, etc. It was all just wonderful. So of course, when the graduation ceremony came around, I was busy, literally busy. By that time, I had my second child, and my wife were getting a lot of things sorted out in our lives as we were growing together. And it slipped my mind. In all honesty, it slipped my mind. The post that you saw on Facebook started out as a rant because people were like, where are the pictures? Where are the pictures? Where are the pictures? And I was like, really? This is what you're concerned about? Graduation pictures?
There are no pictures.
So of course I went on Facebook and I had a rant, and I just left it there. It was a rant. And then I woke up the following morning and it had like 500 shares. And I started panicking, and little old ladies are walking up to me on the side of the road in Linstead, and they're like, oh, congratulations. And I thought it was very creepy. And my wife said I should leave it. My best friend, who ended up being the best man at my wedding, he also said just leave it. So I edited the tone of it so that it was less ranty and it was more inspirational. And it just went everywhere.
And that was the post that I saw, so I'm glad you never deleted it.
Oh yes, oh yes. People still ask me about it up to now. It's as I said, because I'm an introvert, it's creepy when people approach you about it, but that is the post that would have led to this interview, the Power 106 interview, the Jamaica Observer interview, all of that is based on just that post.
And many more to come. And I know, my viewers don't know this, but like you said, you're an introvert, and I'm so happy that you consented, because this is not something that in our conversation, I know that it's not something that you'll get up every day and do. And
on camera. And on camera.
Don't forget that. You're on camera. So most times you're behind the scene answering these questions, doing these interviews for the paper, but here you are with us, and we thank you. You have shared so much with us. We have traveled your journey with you this evening. You have, and I'm sitting here, and in the interest of time, but I'll just sit and just listen. Because there's so much more. To me, you have just given us a synopsis, of your story, where you started, the various pivots in your journey, the negative pivot, the positive pivot, where you're at today. And there are so many young people out there, young boys especially, who are in your position, students who are in your position, who we see in the classroom and we judge them based on their behavior, not understanding that a lot of times there's that underlying issue. Something else is going on, something else that is not addressed. So my final question to you is, what is your advice? It's twofold. What is your advice to that child who is a replica of the younger you? What is your advice to, give me a minute. Just remember my laptop almost, I don't know, just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. What is your advice to that child who is a replica of you? What is your advice to that educator, the adults, the educator, the parent, who should be seeing what is going on, but for some reason, and we're not blaming anybody, this is not a blame game. For some reason, they are just not able to see what is going on behind the facade. So tell us, what is your advice to those two individuals, the child and the adults?
Okay, well, for the child, well, let me start with the parents. For the parents, I would recommend counseling as the first thing. You also need to spend time with your child. The frivolity of a 9-to-5 life, of you get up, you feed the child, you send them off, they come home, you feed them, and that's it. That's not parenting in any way, shape, or form. Parenting is so much deeper than that. Parenting is listening to what is not being said, observing the hidden things. Educators, especially educators in the diaspora where you have like 50, 60 students, it's kind of crazy. But the quiet children, the troubled children, the non-performers, those are your A students. They're bored, they're not challenged. You need to focus more on them. Anyone can take a brilliant student and have them achieve. That's not because of you. That's because of them. The people who need you are the people who you are not seeing, are the people who blend into the background. For the children, let it out. It's better for you to express your feelings. And I also recommend that every parent should take a course in emotional intelligence, because oftentimes shouting doesn't have the effect that you think it does. When noise escalates around me, and my wife will testify to this, if she gets loud, I get quiet. It's more along that you should be communicating in a way such as, why did you do this? Or when I said this, how did it make you feel? Or when you did this, this is how it made me feel. That's how we should be communicating. We need to definitely work on our communication skills right across the board. And that would definitely be my advice. I would tell both sides not to give up. Parents need to push hard. But again, it has to be done in a very emotionally intelligent way, because I can say a great many things about my mother, but one thing about her is she has allowed me the space to grow and to express myself. And as a result of that, she has been rewarded greatly, financially and otherwise. So of course, that would be my advice to all parties involved.
All right. Man, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Ryan. And I know that, you know, everybody in the audience right now is saying thank you. If they're an educator, they're saying thank you. Their parents, they're saying thank you, because you allowed us the opportunity to journey with you this evening, you know, to see the pitfalls, to see, you know, how you rose, um, what allowed you in the middle of that journey to decide, okay, you know, I needed to change, even if it was to ensure that my mom was not embarrassed, you know, I have, because, and, you know, one of the things when, I coach individuals, I say, you have to have a why. You have to have a why. Whatever you are doing, whatever you choose to do, you cannot, and the why is what pushed you. Your why was your mother. And a lot of times we mix up our why with our what. You know, what is it that we want? It's not the what that pushes us, it is our why. So you have to have that why. And again, you know, I just want to say thank you. I think, and we had this conversation already, and maybe it's one-sided when I'm saying it that you think, but I think the sky's the limit for you. I think there is just so much more. Yes, you have so many accolades attached to your name. And like, I'm going to use the word, it's unprecedented. Like, whenever when I saw your bio, I was like, okay. And then here you are telling me that, you know, you are still studying, and I lift my hat off to you, and your students, you know, are going to excel and will always continue to excel, because I believe that is what education should be: autonomy. You know, you give yourself, the administration should give educators autonomy. And I'm like you, I don't function. I don't function in a system where I cannot, you know, execute and teach and be who I am, you know. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming on Voices Behind the Mask. And for everybody who came on late and you want to know a little about Voices Behind the Mask, this is the talk show, the only talk show where we unmask real people like Ryan with real stories that will impact, and not just impact your life, but transform your life. So if you're on this week please remember to invite somebody. I know you're coming next week, so invite someone to come with you next week, because we continue to show you that you can go, meaning you can make that decision just like Ryan did, to walk into your purpose. You can grow, and you might not get all the certifications and degrees that he has. And growth meaning, grabbing all the resources that are around you. And then when you peak, and like I said, I to many of us, you would look like you have self-actualized, and I know that you have not yet self-actualized.
Oh no, not yet.
Oh, no, you're not.
I still have that PhD to do.
All right. So when you peak, you glow because you're at that place into your purpose, because this talk show is all about guiding you into your purpose. And so thank you all for coming on. For all who continue to support Voices Behind the Mask, thank you so much for coming on. Please remember that we do have our VIP, and I'll allow Ryan to, give his closing remarks to all of you in a minute. Just remember that we do have the VIP lounge, and he will be there, and you will be able to do that one-on-one with the guest. Like we said, that's your backstage pass now. And so you can ask him the questions. We have some other persons who will also be there, or mental health practitioner will be there. And he talked a lot about counseling, and that is why we have an in-house mental health practitioner. We have a counselor coming into the room this evening for that 30 minutes. So, and we do give away surprises every week, or most weeks we give away something. So subscribe. You will not regret your subscription. Subscribe to the VIP lounge. Subscribe. And if for anybody, I do have my books on sale on Amazon. You can contact me directly on Facebook, or the link that is going to be in the chat. My calendar link should also be there if you need to set up a meeting with me. If you want to do a meeting, an assessment to see whether or not you're coachable, because not everybody is coachable. All right. We can do that. And there's some other things coming up. So thank you all for coming on. Thank you all so much. And at this time, I'll allow you to throw your, thank yous and comment in the chat to Ryan.
All right, thank you for having me, Miss Foot, or Mrs. Foot. Mrs. Foot. It was wonderful being here to share my story. I think what you're doing is much needed. It's very positive. I love the energy, etc. I will definitely be back. I think this is my 3rd time here for this season.
Thank you.
And of course, it was wonderful having the audience here to listen to a portion of my story. And of course, I will definitely be in the VIP section for 30 minutes to answer any additional questions. Thanks again.
All right, I hear somebody say, keep up the good work. And like I said, this is where you can, I'm gonna ask Tech Support if you can throw the VIP link in. And we do have payment plans as well for the subscription for both the United States and so all those will be coming in the link. So you can stay and click the links that applies to you. All right, again, thank you all for coming on Voices Behind the Mask. I'm your host, Alicia Foot. Remember, this is your season to go, to grow, and to glow in your purpose. Come and join us next week on Voices Behind the Mask as we unmask real people with real stories that are intended to impact and transform your life. Thank you all so much.